Hello everybody, welcome to the video. I'm Jesse, or Cheezer as my username says. Um, I'm doing a space station in KSP. So what you're seeing here now is the actual station, which I've named Sanctuary. That's why I call it Sanctuary Build, obviously. And I'm just kind of placing fairing, which is like, for anybody who doesn't know, it's just a covering, generally, like for larger payloads. And, hmm. And this is, most of these parts are modded, because I find the base game gets a little bit tedious after all, because I played for almost 400 hours in the base game. Um, yeah, so I'm adding probe cores onto each part, because my original plan was to land everything, obviously. Well, not obviously. My original plan was to land everything, because I wanted the whole idea behind this space agency sort of thing that I'm trying to do with the YouTube channel is that everything is reusable 100%. But as you'll see later in the video, I didn't go quite so well. So I actually finished building the first stage. I mean, actually the second stage, which has those um, has the 4 nuclear engines, which will power us while in orbit, and then the one large liquid fuel engine, which is modded, I believe, is called the Orca, and it's from uh, near future launch vehicles, and it is basically just going to help power us to orbit once the first stage attaches. And now, as you can see, I attached the first stage, and I'm just using these what are called vector engines, and they are just have a really high gimbal range, so the actual nozzle of the engine can point really far in each direction, and can actually like it can change. It's what's there to change the direction it's flying in, obviously, and they're really helpful for landing. But once again, later in the video, you'll see that didn't go quite so well. And what basically I'm doing here is when you bring in the advanced movement tools like those little colored arrows, it makes it quite difficult to, well, it should in theory when you're on snapping mode, like where it snaps to a certain part of the craft, it should theoretically snap to an exact area on the craft. But I had them on, I had it on one mode which doesn't allow that. And you see, I noticed that there, so I went back and fixed it. Also something that you would have possibly seen at top. Oh yeah, actually, I'm adding landing gear now, which is I removed this later. I changed it out for a different option, which in turn later led to the ruination of this mission. Ruination is weird, but um, at the top there, you'll possibly see at the top of the first stage, the top of the big first orbital booster, is is what are called grid fins, and they basically it's like what SpaceX uses to direct the spaceship down to the launch pad. I mean, to the landing pad actually, so that it can have a controlled landing. They don't really assist with slowing at all. So I think no, I'm adding these giant structural fins, which ruined the spaceship in the end. Because apparently, well, actually, we'll leave it. You find out later. But basically, yeah, in the end, it led to the ruining of my spaceship. Um, yeah, and those grid fins at the top there, those I think I just went past them. You'll see those there are just they're intended to make it upright just before landing, so it could do like a flip and then land boosters facing down. Obviously, you don't want to land with the boosters facing in the air, or else it'll actually like destroy it and kill everybody and whatnot. It's never good. But yeah, I was adding batteries there to kind of extend the length of time it could be in space, obviously, and then because obviously I want it to be in space for a while. That's kind of the whole idea. It's going to be up there for a couple of days trying to make its way to a. Well, actually, I think it was a really short mission because it's the first chunk of a space station. And I got kind of carried away later in the week. I built the rest of the space station without recording it. So I'm gonna make a video. Planning on making a video, kind of doing like a mini tour of the space station, showing anybody who's willing to watch, uh, how it's advanced since then. Oh, this is actually quite interesting what I did here, and it worked pretty well in the end. These are going to be like fins. Usually the fins have the control surface, like the little moving flap bit facing down, right? I made them so that the flap's facing up, and they're not able to actually, the flaps aren't actually able to move uh, during takeoff and until I leave the atmosphere. But then on re-entry, when I come back down to Carbon, which is the planet that is the equivalent of Earth in this game. Once I come back down with that, I um, what's it called? I've forgotten. Hmm. But oh yeah, I'm able to direct myself and stay upright, and so I don't have to depend on any grid fins for slowing. Because obviously you place grid fins near the top of a craft, and you can't with this because there's those moving doors at the top. And I think I did that just now. I put parachutes in there. I think I can't really tell, but I think I put parachutes in the top, and if I didn't do that already, I'll do that soon. And later on, those also lead to the downfall of this craft. And yeah, now we have takeoff. So that I believe we're in. No, we're not. Never mind. But we're going in the takeoff. It's just a pretty simple thing. This giant ship, and this is these like the plume, the trail that the engines are leaving. That's not actually stock game. That's a mod. It's a visual mod. It makes it. It actually increases the. I would say it increases the performance of the game because it replaces a particle-based system for the plumes with a texture-based system, like a mesh-based system. So it's basically instead of having individual points that are mapped in a 3D space, it just has a like a flat plane that's being turned into a cylinder, essentially an animated plane that's been turned into a cylinder. And now there we are, separation of the second stage. So you see, we're gonna fire all 5 engines to get into orbit, and for that last little circularization burn, because right now we are at the top of our arc is at the height that we want it to be at, and yep, now we are burning to increase the arc obviously into a big circle for anybody that's unaware, because I was hoping that these would be a bit of an intro to KSP for people who aren't sure of how it works. Um, so basically, we're going in now with as much power as we can. I'm just there extending some solar panels, also modded, because there's like no heat shielded solar panels that big. The closest one is like these tiny little dinky ones, and I don't think that they would have probably provided enough power, but I never liked the look of them either. They only look good on smaller craft that are like crew transport. And I think we're coming to the end of our circularization burn now. And there we are. So we're nice in a circle around Kerbin, which is, once again, Kerbin's the planet we're on. And I think soon we should be going back down to the, um, down to the first stage to try and land it. Oh, and one quick side note, while we go back to that, which, yeah, we're doing right now. While we go back to that, yeah, first stage landing, kind of, which you'll see very soon why it's kind of. But, I should not have closed those. But, I'm using a mod named McJeb. Well, MechJeb, like MECHJEB. And that's basically, it helps you do the autopilot with a lot of your craft. I try to do docking as much as possible without autopilot because it's a really fun process for me. I like docking. It's like a little thing that I get to kind of spend my time taking because there's no really consequences of taking your time with it. Uh, and actually, yeah, here this is interesting. I tried to flip it upright, so I started gaining altitude again, obviously, because I'm trying to go upright, and the only way to go upright in a rocket is to fly up. Um, but it flipped around anyway. And soon I go back down to normal speed. I think right now I go back down to the normal speed that you actually see the game in. Yeah, here we are in normal speed. Because this whole time I've been playing it, that build sequence is in 4 times speed, and the sequence before this is 2 times speed. But you see the speed that it's actually traveling at. It's gonna hit the water and be disintegrated instantly. Every single piece of it's gone. Not a single thing survived. Yeah. So station release. Now I'm gonna actually be taking the station out of the fairing there, the payload compartment, and I'll be kind of, and I'll be just positioning it in the place where I want it. So, and since we're on a circular orbit already, I'll just probably release it. I think that's what I did. I just released it and flew the first stage back down. I mean, the second stage. That's the second stage. Just flew it back down because it doesn't really matter given it's the first part of a station. You only have to really concentrate when it comes to the second and like the second and continuations of the station, because that's what you actually are. You have to make sure you're in the same place as your station. And once I've released this, I'll talk more about the MechJeb mod, the autopilot mod that I'm using, because it does help with a lot of more complex things. Like I use it for the landings of my ships, because that it really is. It's just very helpful for that, because that's something that I can't do, and it feathers the engine perfectly and fires the engine at the exact right time, so that it actually lands right when I want it to. Yeah, we're going in now. I think we should be nearly there. And here we are. Oh, what are we doing now? Oh yeah, we're landing. Completely forgot we were landing. I don't know, just left my mind for a second there. Okay, so this one's far more successful, but still not 100%. Whereas I'm gonna release a video on some spaceships I built, because I didn't want to go through the whole build process again and explain everything. I thought that would be a little bit tedious. So I'm just gonna do like a little mini overview of what I built, and then I'm gonna show you a couple of flights from them. And yeah, so and I come up with cool names. There's the Hydra, and then there's the base model is the, what do I call it? The Kirin, like Kirin, which is kind of like dragon thing. It's pretty cool. And then there's the Hydra, which is three of the Kirin strapped together. I thought it was pretty cool too. And the Kirin is for crew transport, and the Hydra is for large payloads. Well, small to medium payloads, actually. It's not great at really big payloads. This is better for big payloads, but obviously it doesn't land itself. Um, you see, I'm firing that big main engine now. And I've turned off the four nuclear engines, because they're highly efficient, but they have a really low thrust to weight ratio, so they won't be able to actually slow a significant amount. Whereas this should be able to slow me enough for my descent. And I believe I sped it up in time warp for this, but I couldn't. Actually, no, I haven't. It's just normal speed. But I'm gonna activate the auto land soon, and it's probably gonna. Oh yeah, so it gets pretty close to landing on its own. But I released that, and I released that parachute. But the other one was supposed to release, and I forgot about that. So since the autopilot thing wasn't expecting it, I was spending this whole time I was panicking, trying to figure out the parachute, whereas I should have been focusing on turning on the engine. See, look, yeah, I should have done that. I should have been focusing on that more, or else I wouldn't have crashed if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't been focusing on something else. Um, but otherwise, yeah. So I lost two engines, but that was far more successful of a landing than the first one. And yeah, now we're back here at the KSC Kerbal Space Center. And I hope I see you in the next video. It's coming out soon, probably a couple days. Bye.